This is a basic instructional video on how to make scaled card models, architectural models. This particular card model is of one single room and it's at 1:100. That means it is 100 times smaller than the real life version of this. The standard tools that we're going to use to create this model is, first of all, a pencil with a hard lead in it, like a 4H pencil or a 2H pencil would be okay. A scale ruler. The model we're going to create is 1:100, so we're going to pick a scale ruler that has a scale of 1:100 on it. A metal ruler for cutting along. This particular metal ruler is made of aluminium, and on the back it has a cushioned strip, which means when you press down on it, it won't move around easily. Also, you can get steel rulers that have cork backs on them, and they're quite useful too. A set square, so this is a standard 45-degree set square. We're going to use some PVA glue. This is standard cheap PVA glue. You can use any sort of PVA wood glue or standard cardboard glue to glue them together. And finally, we're going to use a scalpel. This particular scalpel is a Swan Morton scalpel. This is the number 3 handle. This is the one I find most useful for doing intricate work. It's a surgical scalpel with a surgical blade on it. To remove this blade, I use a pair of standard pliers. So I lift the blade and then I pull it off like this. And then to put on the new blades, I take it out of its packaging. I place it into the groove that's in the knife here. And then I turn the knife and I push the knife into the table. And that will snap into place. On the base here we have a cutting mat. This is a very standard cutting mat for being able to cut our parts on. To be able to create this little small model, we need some drawings to work from. So I printed out some drawings here of this model. You can see I have the plan. All of the cut lines are in red, and then when I'm just marking the lines, they're in blue. I have each of the walls drawn out at the exact right dimensions. So this full drawing is at 1:100. I have made it so it can be made from 1.5 millimeter card. So in the model, the walls are 1.5 millimeter thickness. In real life, they're 150 millimeters in thickness because this model is at 1:100. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out the drawing that we need. So this particular drawing with the scalpel. I'm going to cut in roughly close to the drawing, but I'm not going to try and be accurate on the drawing. And then going to stick that drawing down on top of a piece of card. So this card is 1.5 millimeter grey card. Often it's about 1 millimeter in thickness, and that's perfectly okay also. I'm going to place my drawing down and take a bit of masking tape, standard masking tape, and stick that on all 4 sides flat onto the piece of card. I then pick up my scalpel and take my steel rule. What I'm going to do is I'm going to score through all of these lines through the paper into the card so that it marks the top of the card. So I place my scalpel in the center of the line. I push my steel ruler in against it. I line my steel ruler up so that it runs down the center of the line, and then I mark it. However, I will start with all the lines on the inside first, because if I cut this one on the outside first, this piece of paper is going to fall out and I will have no lines to work off. So I start on the inside. Take your time and mark them accurately. So after you've completely cut through all of the drawing and marked it out on the cardboard, you can remove this piece of paper. And if you look a bit closer, you can see all the markings on the card. So now I need to cut out the parts that I had lined in red, and this line here is to be left engraved so that I can place each of the pieces of wall down onto the base where they should be. Just like with the engraving, we're going to cut out the middle pieces first so that the wall is held in place while we cut the middle piece. You should use several strokes to cut through the card rather than trying to lean too heavy, because you could break the blade by leaning too heavy. And make sure that you have a sharp blade to be able to do this. Need to be careful when cutting, especially internal corners. You can see that I have overrun that corner slightly, which is going to make that part of this wall very weak. So I may need to cut that again. These are all the parts I'm going to use to assemble the walls on top of this base. These are all the parts I'm going to use to assemble the model, so I will place all the walls onto the marked lines on the base. I'm going to place a blob of glue onto a sheet of paper. And I have created a little stick of card to be able to transfer the glue onto the parts of the model. I'm going to start with this long side. So I just want glue along the bottom of it. So I'm going to take my card stick, get a little bit of glue on it. Get a little bit of glue on it. And then take it and place it. There's only a tiny bit of glue all the way along of the end of the piece of card, and I'm going to be sticking it down along this line that has been marked on my base. It's difficult to get it to stay straight when you're on your first part, but when I add the second part, that will help line it up. So I'm going to do the same with my second part now, in that I'm going to place a small bit of glue along the bottom of it. and then the end of this touches the side of this part. So I'm going to place a small bit of glue on the end of this part. Then I'll place this side with the window into its position, and I can align the first wall and make sure that they're flush. So they should be flush along here. There is a certain amount of time you have to maneuver things, about 5 minutes. After that the bond will have been made by the glue and you will rip the card by moving them. So I'm going to continue on round. Next part I'm going to do the door. So I will take my glue, put it on the end of this part and on the bottom of my door, and place my door into place. And then we have the model complete. Should be careful. For example, glue has squeezed out along there. That means that I put too much glue on the bottom of the piece of card. A sparing amount of glue is all that you need. There's not much forces against the card, so as long as there's a small dab, it will hold. On the original model I did this one. I also created a little scale man. So the average height of a man in real life is 1,800 millimeters. So at 1:100, that's 18 millimeters high. So I created this man 18 millimeters. And what that helps you do is immediately when you see the model, you know what scale it is. You know this is the size of a man, so that's the size of a normal door, and this is a room-sized model.